so happy to have you today. America is back. President Trump is doing lots of great things. So we're going to keep praying for him and his team and his cabinet. Every one of his cabinet could be president. I heard that this week. So we have a powerful team. So let's begin in prayer. I'm going to invite Steve Thomason, our chaplain, up to open us up in prayer.
Blessed are you, Heavenly Father, creator of the universe, who brings abundance to our tables today. We're asking for your wisdom to be embedded in the minds of those who have political authority over us. May your values always be the basis for every decision they make. And Lord, please protect those who are living in the tornado areas today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Steve. And now I'd like to invite Alan Clark up to help us with to lead our Pledge of Allegiance. If you can, stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
I like the way Alan, he emphasized republic. We live in a republic, not a democracy. And now I would like to invite up Karen Blanco to lead us in our Americanism piece.
Good morning, everybody. This talk is about the early days of the U.S. Supreme Court and a practice back then called riding the circuit. The Judiciary Act of 1789 was passed by Congress about 15 months after the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. Signed into law on September 24th, 1789 by President George Washington, and officially named the Act to establish the judicial courts of the United States, it created the structure of the federal judicial system. It's a mouthful. 5 Supreme Court Associate Justices and 1 Chief Justice were appointed to meet twice yearly to hear cases important to the new nation. Congress also established district courts, which heard maritime and admiralty cases, as well as some minor criminal and civil matters. Circuit courts were also formed, which heard most major civil and criminal trials, as well as appeals from district courts. So this is how the practice of so-called riding the circuit began, a challenging additional responsibility placed on the Supreme Court justices, which lasted until the early 1900s. Not only did the justices hear cases during the Supreme Court's 6 to 8 week official term, but they also traveled to different regions of the young country to serve as circuit court judges. Aside from their responsibility to interpret the U.S. laws, they were also expected to educate the American public on the roles and responsibilities of their new government, especially the judicial branch. Riding the circuit was seen as beneficial for 5 basic reasons. First, the Supreme Court justices could directly interact with the American public, learning about their lives and communities. Second, each region could feel connected to the federal government as the justices explained the U.S. Constitution to the residents. Third, having the Supreme Court justices listen to local cases kept the judicial branch's budget low by not having to hire circuit judges. Fourth, it would coerce justices to keep up with laws on the regional level, not just on the national level. And finally, according to the Supreme Court Historical Society, and this point reminds me of our modern-day system in Washington, D.C., some Congress members feared that if justices were confined to the Capitol, they could be overly influenced by politics, which could affect their opinions and rulings. Does that sound familiar? However, according to accounts from the Supreme Court justices, the hardships of circuit riding outweighed the benefits. Our new country was a land of primitive roads and few bridges. Travelers dealt with harsh weather, unreliable transportation, and treacherous traveling conditions. Justices struggled to arrive to court on time. Justice William Cushing wrote to President Washington, quote, "The traveling is difficult this season. I left Boston on January 13th and reached Middleton, Delaware, as the snow on the 18th began, which fell so deep there as to oblige me to take a sleigh, and now again, back to wheels," unquote. Justice Samuel Chase narrowly escaped death when crossing a near-frozen river in Pennsylvania while returning to the Capitol. The Philadelphia Gazette wrote at the time of the accident, quote, "The Honorable Judge Chase was taken from the river almost lifeless," unquote. Justice James Iredell traveled for months at a time on the Southern State Circuit. Oftentimes, the swampy conditions made it too dangerous to travel, leading him to cancel court sessions. Local papers chastised Iredell for his failure to show up, not realizing the danger he was facing. If they could not stay with friends, the justices stayed in public accommodations, rooming with fellow Americans they met along the dirt roads and rivers of our new nation. They paid their own travel expenses. Tavern food varied greatly in quality, and it was difficult to rest in the busy inns and crowded public houses. Justice Iredell wrote to his wife that he was forced to sleep in a room with 5 people, and Justice William Cushing once shared a room with 12 other men. On the average, justices spent from 6 to 9 months yearly on circuit, covering some 1,000 miles for each circuit. One was unfortunately robbed on his journey. So finally, one justice named William Patterson wrote encouragingly to his wife, quote, "Suffer not your spirits to sink. I am in the course of duty, and being so, we must bear up under it with patience, and if possible, with cheerfulness," unquote. Finally, however, worn down and exhausted from the hardships of the circuit, the justices asked President Washington to present their case before Congress. In 1792, they wrote to Washington in part, quote, "We request your attention to the enclosed representation, and that you will be pleased to lay it before the Congress. We really, sir, find the burdens laid upon us to be excessive. We cannot reconcile ourselves to the idea of existing in exile from our families," unquote. They signed their names to the letter, quote, "With the most perfect respect, esteem, and attachment, we have the honor to be, sir, your most obedient and most humble servants," unquote. Washington did indeed present their complaints to Congress in early November 1792. The justices' presentation asked respectfully, quote, "that the system may be so modified as that we may be relieved from our present painful and improper situation," unquote. Unfortunately, change was slow to come for the traveling justices as more settlers migrated westward and the population grew throughout the 1800s. Congress eventually began slowly to restructure the circuits, and circuit riding finally ended with the enactment of the Judicial Code of 1911. So all through the 1800s they did that. And the Supreme Court has remained in Washington, D.C. full-time ever since. Thank you. God bless America.
Wow, isn't that amazing? 1911, so they traveled all over the country since 1911? That's incredible. Wow. Thank you, Karen. Karen loves to research that stuff. She brings us wonderful history. So now it's time for our keynote speaker. So I want to invite up our Vice President of Programs, Betty Oliker, to introduce our guest speaker.
Thanks, Pat. I told Karen if she had been my history teacher, I would have paid a lot more attention. It's my honor to introduce the Honorable Mary Barke. Mary works for the California Policy Center on their Janus project and Parent Union, and is the director of their CLEO project. That's the California Local Elected Officials. Mary produced 2 virtual trainings for local elected officials and provides in-person trainings to potential candidates and local leaders throughout the state. Mary serves in leadership or advisory roles for several organizations, including the Advisory Committee for CFER, Californians for Equal Rights Foundation, and the Unity Project, and the Advisory Council for Let Them Breathe. She is also on the board of directors of the Cypress Chamber of Commerce and an ambassador for the Los Alamitos Chamber of Commerce. She's a California GOP state delegate and was a national delegate in 2016, 20, and 24. Mary was first elected to the Orange County Board of Education in 2018 and was reelected in June 2022. She has served as board president twice and board vice president twice during her 7 years on the board and is currently serving as vice president. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be back. I think I was here about a year ago, or has it been 2 years? I can't remember, but it hasn't been that long, but it's great to see everyone again. Thank you for coming today. I'm excited to share what we're doing at the California Policy Center. As a matter of fact, we're doing so much that I realized that bio isn't even up to date because we now have 3 academies. We added the Strategy Academy to the Candidate Academy and the Leadership Academy because we discovered that there were people that have been now elected and they're like, holy cow, what do I do? And so the Strategy Academy really guides them through their first 100 days all the way to their long-term planning. So I hope most of you received a little pamphlet. I was just going to go through it just to really familiarize you with our programs. And so I'll start with the first program. The first program is our Janus Project, and that's based on a decision back in 2018 when the Supreme Court decided that people did not have to pay dues anymore to the unions. It made it their choice to do it. Unfortunately, rulings after that made it very difficult to let people know that they could get out of their unions, but we do our best to educate them. And through our statewide marketing campaign, we now have helped almost 30,000 union members out. We do it with other organizations. We don't take credit for every single member, but we work together with other organizations, and that's more than 435,000 people. And the California government unions, now this is only California, not the whole country, just California. We have the majority of unions here. They spend over $1 billion every election cycle. So it's really important to work hard to get the union members out to stop funneling this dues to bad politics, because most of the bad politics comes from this union dues. So we spend a lot of time doing that. And clearly, the best reason that a lot of people leave is for the money. It costs about $1,000 a year for that dues. They can get the same benefits that they're getting for about 25% of the cost. And I would argue that they might be even better benefits, because if the union wants to protect you, they do. If they don't, they don't. The union is really about themselves. Their original intent was really to protect people, and now they are clearly the biggest impediment to students and teachers. So that's one of our projects that we're always working on. Another project is our parent union. Our parent union really educates parents how to fight for their children and how to make sure they get the best education with minimal union influence. The parent union does a lot of things. We have a wonderful website called parentunion.org that anyone can go on, and it does things from teaching them how to public speak at one of their children's school board meetings to how to file a public records request to really find out what's going on, and teaches parents how to unify and how to protect their children. One of the things that Parent Union hosts annually is their annual summit. We just came back from our 4th annual summit. It was extremely successful. It was our biggest summit ever. We had 160 people go to Sacramento. Now, some of them live there. They're people from all over the state. But we had 160 attendees, which is our biggest ever. I think our first one was around 50 or 60. We had our inaugural speaker come back, who's Congressman Kevin Kiley, a big friend of all of ours. He was our speaker again this year. And when he walked in the room, he said, wow. Look at the people you have in this room and look at how many of them, because they're state leaders, they're elected officials, they're parent groups, just an amazing group of people. And he was so touched by the quality. And I remember him saying that his first year, that it was a small but mighty group because it was much smaller, but again, we had some real leaders in the room. So it was a great conference. Kevin Kiley started, I did a panel with him, and we talked about what Trump means for California. So it was an excellent panel. We did a lot of Q&A. Following that panel, we had a wonderful panel with Assemblyman Asaley, who I think most of you know is the top guy here now in California who's going to really protect us. So we're really excited about that. He did a wonderful panel with Emily Ray, who is the attorney from Liberty Justice Center, who is protecting Chino Valley. And I think you guys know Chino Valley really led the parental rights movement. So we had Emily Ray on that panel, as well as our own Julie Hamill, who runs our California Justice Center, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. candidates. So that was a great panel. Then we had Lance Azumi talking about literacy. We had a math guy talking about math. It was just a wonderful conference. At the end, we talked about strategy. The next day, myself and 2 other school board members headed up a panel to really educate school board members and talk about some of the things that can really help make your time on a school board more productive, whether you're on a majority or a minority board. So that was a great session. And then we had, oh my goodness, Sarah Hines, who works in the legislature, to talk about all of what really goes on. And then we took a field trip over to the Capitol and met with some legislators. We handed out some awards, one to our Senator Stephen Choi, who is great about school choice and parental rights and the like. Another award went to the speaker, Brian Jones. So it was a great event. A lot of success, and we're really excited. And one of the things that we really find important about events like our summit is not only do we educate, because as a nonprofit, a 501c3, we can't be political, but we can educate elected officials, and we spend a lot of time doing that, and parents. And a lot of these parents that we're educating become candidates because of what's going on in their schools or what's going on. They turn from so-called activists, which is really what the parent union is, to potential candidates and then elected officials. And one of the important things about this event is the networking, because I don't know if some of you know, but here in California, we have a law, it's called the Brown Act. And it means that you can never talk to a majority of your board or your council unless you're speaking publicly. What they don't want is us to conduct business behind closed doors. So I'm on a board with 5, so I can only find one friend to talk about any issue that I know may be on a further agenda. Well, by meeting these people from across the country, they now have across the state, they now have contacts everywhere. So if they have an issue and they're talking to their board mate, or if you're a 7-member board, you can actually talk to 2 people because it's less than the majority. But if I don't like what I learn on my board, or I just want more information, I can call a guy in Placer. I can call somebody in San Jose. I can call somebody in San Diego. So it really provides excellent contacts, as well as contacts to elected officials. You know, whether it's Kevin Kiley you're meeting, we know that he may have helped recently with us sending information up to the Secretary of Education about what's going on in here with California violating FERPA, our rights as parents. And when Ken Kiley heard that we had sent it up, he said, oh, send it to me, and I'll make sure it gets to the right place. A couple days later, Saturday, it was the front page of the LA Times that we had sent a letter to the Federal Department of Education, and they are now investigating California as a result. So yes. Matter of fact, I brought something that I can read to you that was in, I don't know if any of you subscribe to our newsletter, but I would recommend it. It's free. And if you go on californiapolicycenter.org, there's a way to sign up. And every week we talk about something exciting that either we're doing or just going on in the state. You know, the California Policy Center, our goal is to make California more sustainable so less people leave. Both of my kids have left. I have a daughter in Wisconsin and a son in Indiana. We want to make California sustainable and affordable so people can stay. That's really our goal. So the newsletter's great. And I will, you know what, I'll do it right now as long as we're talking about it. So I'm just going to read part of this, and this was in last week's newsletter because I think you'll find it interesting. The U.S. Department of Education announced Thursday that it will investigate California for violating the authority of parents over their children who attend public schools, specifically on matters of gender identity. According to the LA Times, the investigation was initiated in response to a January 31st complaint filed by the California Justice Center. That is our Justice Center at the California Policy Center, headed up by Julie Hamill. In that complaint, California Policy Center's attorney, Julie Hamill, president of the California Justice Center, cited Assembly Bill 1955 as evidence that the state is violating the Federal Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. That's what FERPA is. That's what the acronym FERPA stands for. FERPA is a federal law that guarantees the right of parents to access their children's educational records, to request record corrections or amendments, and to control, with important exceptions, disclosure of personally identifiable information in education records. In the press release announcing its investigation, the U.S. Department of Education Student Privacy Policy Office, the SPPO, said it has reason to believe that numerous local educational agencies, LEAs, in California may be violating FERPA to socially transition children at school while hiding minors' gender identity from parents. AB 1955 was signed into law by Governor Newsom last year, appears to be in conflict with FERPA. The department's press release goes on to quote Hamill's complaint. As a result, according to the California Justice Center, every public school in California has a policy of denying or effectively preventing the parents of students the right to inspect and review the education records of their children. So I won't go on, but anyway, the complaint filed by our Justice Department at the California Policy Center has initiated this federal investigation into California to protect our children. So that's the kind of work that we're doing at California Policy Center. The California Justice Center is a new addition since I last spoke to you. It's been up and running now for several months. I'll mention one other win that Julie Hamill, our attorney, had recently during the last election. I don't know if you guys have heard of Brenda Labsick. You probably know her, Betty. So Brenda was a special ed teacher in Santa Ana. She served on the Orange Unified School Board. She moved about a block and moved out of her district. Now, 4 years later, she decided to run for the Santa Ana School Board. She never thought she would win. She's on a board 1 to 4 with 4 crazy people. When you go to the meeting, you don't do the Pledge of Allegiance. You read how they are on Indian land. That's what you learn when you attend their meeting. So Brenda's fighting the good fight. She won by 200 votes, which shocked her. But yeah, 200 votes. It forced her to quit her job because she's a Santa Ana school teacher and she won the job. So now she doesn't have a real paying job. She's just on that crazy board. But we love her for doing it. We need people like that to fight. Brenda tried to take out an ad on a bus stop sign. You know how the bus stops, they have little signs? And she was told she couldn't because she couldn't say something that attacked government. What it said was, why are test scores going down, less than 30% of the population or the children in Santa Ana can read and write, less than 50% of the children in Santa Ana can do math, yet graduation rates are increasing. That's all it said, and they said no. So Julie Hamill wrote a letter to the Santa Ana city government, and now Brenda is advertising on those bus stops because they were violating First Amendment rights. So I think our Justice Center is really doing important work. Julie Hamill's amazing. She's actually on a school board herself. She's on the Palos Verdes School Board. Again, she's a lone voice. She's a 1-4 voice. And she really, she went on that board because she had 3 young children during the pandemic, and she saw what was happening to her kids, and she decided she had to stand up and fight. For a long time, she had a lawsuit going against the health director of LA. You might know her from that. If anybody's on X, formerly known as Twitter. She's got like 60,000 followers. She's an amazing woman. She came to us because she was so frustrated during the pandemic. She's gone from, I think at one time being a Democrat, then to an NPP. She is now a registered Republican, and she is working with at the Cal Justice Center, and we couldn't be happier to have her. She's just an amazing woman. All right, I'm going to talk about our last little project, and that's Clio. That's the one I actually run, so that's probably the easiest one for me. As I mentioned at the beginning, we now have 3 academies. We have the Candid Academy, the Leadership Academy, and the Strategy Academy. Do you guys know Lance Christensen? He ran for State Superintendent of Public Instruction in the last election, 4 years ago. He just ran in the last election. The only silver lining to Senator Morlock losing his election about 6 years ago now is that Lance Christensen came to work for us because he was Senator Morlock's chief of staff. So he's been working with us since that happened. And now, actually, I have to tell you about that program too. I almost forgot. The Center for Public Accountability, which is run by John Morlock at the California Policy Center, another new program. So Lance Christensen came to us. Lance and I were working with Pete Peterson at the Pepperdine School of Public Policy, which is one of the few center-right schools of public policy graduate programs. Pete Peterson said that if we came up with this Leadership Academy, he would personally endorse it. He can't endorse it through the university because they have a similar program, but I think it cost you about $60,000. So he was going to approve it with us. We were writing it, and right in the middle of writing this Leadership Academy, we suddenly had 400 people that wanted to run for office, and we didn't have the ability to mentor each one. It used to be that CLEO, California Local Elected Officials, people like me and other more seasoned school board members, city councilors, assemblymen, Board of Supervisors, they would mentor candidates to just kind of show them the ropes, what to do, how to run for office. And suddenly we didn't have the capacity because of what was going on in education mostly. You had all these mad moms and dads running for office. So we stopped writing the Leadership Academy, we put it down, and we did the Candidate Academy because we had to give them a tool to figure out how to run for office. And even if they should run for office, that academy starts out by talking you out of office, reminding you that everything you've ever done will be public. And if you haven't done anything terrible and your spouse has, that will be public. Your kids will probably be bullied. You know, we talk about like, who else is in the race? Are you the best person? So it's a great academy. So we stopped doing the Leadership Academy. We wrote the Candidate Academy. As a result of that Candidate Academy, I think it says in here that 456 people trained. Now it's well over 500. But just in that first year when it came out, I believe that 400 people went through it, about 200 ran, and over 100 people won office. So, so it had an impact. So once we completed that, we finished our Leadership Academy. That one is a little different. It's 16 modules, and it just goes through things that as a leader, whether you're running for office, you're in office, or you're just an interested person, it talks about first principles, crony capitalism, how to do social media as elected official. It talks about legal things, HR. It talks about the Brown Act. So if somebody calls me and says, Mary, I don't understand the Brown Act. I was just elected and I want to make sure that I don't violate the Brown Act. I say, well, go to our Leadership Academy Module 4. It talks all about it. So that's a great academy. It's now up to 16 modules. We recently added land use. We have all kinds of all-stars who have participated in it. First Principles is the president of Claremont College. The social media is Kevin Kiley, because at the time he was one of the few elected officials actually doing his own social media. We have people like Will O'Neill, who did a couple of them. Our own President Will Swaim, he moderates a couple of them. I moderated one, but it's just a great academy. With those academies, if somebody takes the academy, and you can, sometimes we do them in person if we have a big enough local group, but anyone can do them virtually. You can watch them, which is super fun, and watch the interaction of it's always a moderator, whether they're interviewing Kevin Kiley or I'm interviewing somebody else. It's great interaction. There's also a PDF if you prefer just to read and don't like watching fun movies. There's many ways to take it, and once you complete it and you do it on your own time, some people do an academy in a day, other people do it in a month. We do issue a certificate of completion. So where we can't endorse a candidate, if they go through our academy, I give them about a 5-minute exit interview just to make sure that they had a great time and to give us some feedback. And then we do issue them a certificate of completion, which they can take when they run for office, as sort of like if they go to maybe the Lincoln Club or the GOP for an endorsement, they can say, well, I've gone through the Candidate Academy, I've gone through the Leadership Academy. And then once they're elected, we have our Strategy Academy. That's the newest one. So we've been on the road with that one as well. Lance Christensen and I wrote all 3 of them together. The first one was written, I think he was getting new tires on his car, and he was sitting at the repair shop, and I was at home on my computer just making a bunch of notes, and somehow it turned into an academy. So we've had a lot of fun with those. We've had a lot of fun training them. What else do I want to tell you about? The other thing that's changed about Clio is it's much more formal. It's had some upgrades to it, and now going forward, this year we've grandfathered everyone that's in Clio, but starting next year there's going to be a small charge, and that's because, you know, I think it's time that our donors feel that our program should sustain itself, and so any elected officials, it's a $99 charge per year. Former elected officials, retired elected officials, it's $49, and for activist parents and candidates, it's $69. Now, if you're elected, a lot of times your government agency will pay for it. It's continuing education, but we don't. And if it's a burden, I'm sure we'll scholarship people. But there is a minor cost, and we have 3 tiers, and it's much more formalized now. We have great opportunities, lunch and learns that all kinds of people will come in and educate our elected officials. So that's a little bit about Clio. The last project, I don't know even how long you want me to talk for. Okay, all right. Okay, great. And I love Q&A. That way I can tell you what you really want to hear. So John Morlock is part of one of our newest projects, and it's the Center for, what do we call it? The Center for Public Accountability. And a lot of you probably know John Morlock. He was an idol of mine the first time I ran. I was basically told by everybody I talked to that if I was going to run for office, I needed John Morlock to endorse me because he was the only CPA in the Senate, and he was brilliant, and everybody loves him. So I actually reached out to every elected official in Orange County to get endorsements. And some people were super kind, endorsed me right away. Some people insisted on an interview. Some people didn't answer, and some were even just a titch nasty. Not too many, though. But anyway, so John Morlock was one of those detailed people who said, well, we need to sit down and talk before I'll endorse you. So I said, okay. And we kept trying to set up meetings. At the time, I was actually doing advance for the Vice President of the United States. So I was going to Japan and Canada and all over the country. So I wasn't home a lot, and we kept trying to do it. And I was at a convention, I think it was a CRA convention at Knott's Berry Farm, right before I was going to print my material to run for office. So I needed to talk to him because I wanted his name on that material. If I didn't talk to him and get the endorsement, I couldn't put his name on. So somebody who knew how important this was to me saw him go in the men's room. And they said, Mary, Senator Morlock just went in the men's room. If you hang out, you'll run into him. So that's what I did. I didn't stand too close to, so he would know that I was stalking him, although we laugh about it today. But once he came out, I said, please, Senator Morlock, I need to go to print Monday. I think it was a Saturday. And it's so important for me to have your endorsement. Ask me anything you want. And so after a few minutes, he said, fine, you can have it. We'll talk more later. And I remember then, a couple days later, whenever I wanted to put him, I think, on some other flyer. I think maybe I also wanted him on my candidate statement. I don't know what. I just wanted him on something, so I wanted a quote. So I sent him this quote, and I said, well, what do you think about that? And he wrote back, what are you trying to say? And I told him, and then he rewrote it. And so now we're fast friends. We have great friends, and we laugh about the time I had to stalk him outside the men's room at Knott's Berry Farm. But he's amazing. Just his knowledge, he's so willing to help people and talk to them, whether it's a candidate or an organization. As a result of his work, we have fiscal information on over 1,400 municipalities in the state. And that's school districts, that's water districts, that's city councils. So we know their financial health. We have a dashboard where you can go on, and he chases these people down for their financial information. And he lets you know that you're the last one to give it to him. But he's a great resource. So that's our latest addition to the California Policy Center, along with Julie, and we love having both of them. I started volunteering for the California Policy Center back in 2017. So I don't know if you guys, I don't know if I've told you my story. If you remember, I'll tell you quickly. I wasn't involved in politics at all. I have a degree in finance. I was doing a bunch of different stuff. Back in 2015, I realized Hillary Clinton was running for president, and I thought, oh, she can't be our president. Any woman who is so power hungry that she didn't leave Clinton after what he did in the White House, I just thought, forget it. I don't want this lady running our country. And it turns out a friend of a friend was recruiting Ben Carson to run for president. I thought, now that's a guy I'd love to see as president. So I started volunteering for him, and somehow I went from knowing nothing about politics to being in Iowa with him for 3 weeks as his Southern California regional director. Then we came back, and after a few more town halls, I think in Las Vegas and a few other places, he dropped out of the race, and he endorsed Trump. And I was like, really? I didn't know much about Trump. I wasn't like, some people are big followers. I didn't know much. I thought it was all propaganda. And I said, you endorsed Trump? And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, he may be bombastic, he may have a different style than me, but he loves America just like me, and he put his hand on his heart. And I thought, if he's going to endorse Trump, as crazy as he might be, good enough for me. To me, he was like the smartest man in the world. So I got on the Trump train. I became his volunteer endorsement and director for California. I became a delegate, which nobody could believe because I'd never been in politics. How I got to the national convention, I still really don't know. But I was willing. But I've now been to 3, so, or actually 2, because they canceled 2020. I was a delegate, but they didn't let us go. So as a result of doing that, getting these endorsements for Trump, which some days were easier than others, depending what was in the news, somebody told me to write to Fred Whitaker. I'd never heard of Fred Whitaker, but apparently he was the chair of the Orange County Republican Party. So they said, write to Fred and ask him to help you to get local endorsements from Orange County elected officials. Oh, I think it was Ed Sachs. So I'm Jewish. I was at Temple. Ed Sachs was there. I went up. I thought, oh, he's an elected official. I'm going to ask him to endorse. So I asked him, and he was willing to do it. And I said, can you help me? And I think he's the one who told me to write to Fred Whitaker. So I write this letter to Fred Whitaker. He apparently says to somebody who is working on the Trump thing, who in the heck is Mary Barke? And they're like, oh, she's great. She's helping. Just give her what she wants. So after Trump won, Fred Whitaker invited me to lunch, and he said to me, who are you and where did you come from? Just minding my own business until the country got a bit crazy. And so he said, would you consider running for office? And I said, no way. It's just the media. That's one thing I learned about the media, because they would like ignore Ben Carson so much. People didn't even think he was running. I just didn't like it. So I said, no way. He said, well, how about volunteering for this organization called the California Policy Center? I'd never heard of them. I did a little research. He said, if you could get people to endorse Trump, you could get people to join CLEO, because CLEO was what they were trying to put together, the California local elected officials. So I said, fine, I'll go volunteer. That was July of 2017. By November of 2017, one of the founders at California Policy Center asked me to run for the Orange County Board of Education. Now, I'll tell you how knowledgeable I was. I didn't know it existed. I knew there were districts, but I'd never heard of the County Board of Education, but I was soon educated that it was an appeals board, and we approved charter schools, interdistrict transfers, and expulsions on appeal. A lot of parents don't even know that if they try and get an interdistrict transfer and they're declined by their district, which they typically are because districts care more about the money rather than where is the best fit for the child. So they don't even know that we do that. And then we approved charter schools. So I somehow decided to run. Actually, I can tell you why. I watched a movie called Waiting for Superman. Has anybody watched that movie? Okay, so if you watch that movie, it breaks your heart because you realize a child's education, maybe their life, is dependent on a lottery because there aren't enough charter schools. There's a lot of kids in districts with terrible schools. They want to go to a free charter school, but they can't get in because of the waiting list. So after watching that movie, my kids had great options. My one son went all the way through the public system. My daughter went to private high school because she was bullied in middle school and was afraid to go to a high school with 3,000 kids. So we had the opportunity to send her to private school. I would have loved a free charter, but I didn't even know what they were. I didn't know much about that. So after watching the movie, I did run for the Orange County Board of Education. I am proud to say that we've gone from 14 to 45 charter schools in Orange County since 2018. Mm-hmm. Yep, we flipped the board. At that time, it had been a 2-3 board most of the time. Every now and then, they had the majority for 2 years, and then they would lose it. And so we flipped it to a 3-2 board. We're now a 5-0 board. And yeah. And thank you, Betty. And we also have a like-minded superintendent. We have Stefan Bean. I don't know if you guys have met Dr. Stefan Bean. Yes. So Stefan Bean is a great story. He's an amazing man. Back in 2020, when I was really frustrated with our current superintendent who didn't believe like we did, he didn't put the children first. He was a very kind man. He was always very kind to me. May his soul rest. He's since passed away. He was always very kind to me, but he didn't protect the kids the way I thought they should. So I met Dr. Bean randomly on the school board of a charter school, and he was the first person I met that had the credential necessary to run for the county superintendent. It's a very difficult credential. We tried to talk Lisa Sparks, and she said it would take her 1.5 years to get it, despite the fact that she's got her doctorate and is a dean at Chapman. So Dr. Bean had this degree that you needed, so I said to him, would you run? And he said, I don't know. He'd never run for office, kind of like me. And so I said, okay, have dinner with me and my campaign advisor. So my campaign advisor at the time was Jackson Reese, who's now Senior VP at California Policy Center. It's amazing how we all kind of go in these circles. And Jackson and I had dinner with Stefan. And Jackson just loved his story. And he said, I don't know if you can win, but if you're willing to give it a try, I'll work for you for free. And that's not too usual for a campaign guy to work for free. He worked for Stefan for free, Dr. Bean, and Dr. Bean got 46% of the vote against an entrenched incumbent, a guy who'd never run for office. So it was pretty good. And then here a couple years later, we had a vacancy, so it was like a one-time event that we could actually appoint a superintendent, because he's elected as we are. He's going to have to run in 2026 like I am to hold his seat. But it was such a rare opportunity to get to appoint him. And once somebody's an appointed incumbent, it's a lot easier to run with that title. So we're really excited. I was at a Flag Day dinner with him, and he said to me, Mary, you're responsible for this. And I'm like, no, I was just one of 5 votes. And then he reminded me that I recruited him. I'd kind of forgotten about that. So that's been a great story. We're looking forward to him winning his reelection. He's already doing such amazing things in Orange County. The the charter schools love him. The districts even love him, which I know they were not happy when we appointed him. That was not, and he's gone above and beyond. The staff, there's like 1,200 people at the Department of Education that report to him that never met the past superintendent. So he's just winning everybody. I went to OSHA. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Orange County School of the Arts. It's the biggest charter school here in Orange County. They do incredible arts. Most of their students go on Broadway or have very successful careers from OSHA. So they have this amazing event. They usually invite me. They did again this year. Dr. Bean actually tried to buy a table so staff could attend. It was the first time ever. They were sold out, but he was able to buy a few tickets, and we had some of our staff there that was so grateful because they work on these charter schools. They do the paperwork, so they got to enjoy some of the fun. So that was really nice to see. So, and I think I started this, and then I'll end by saying that when I first started volunteering at the California Policy Center, there were 4 of us. There was me, our president, Will Swaim, there was Ceci Iglesias, and there was Jackson Reese as a part-time intern. He was still going to Biola. And now we are, I think we're like 17 strong or something. I mean, we've got an amazing group. We've got a full-time comms director who just amazing, amazing, amazing. She puts out our newsletter. You'll read it. You'll see how amazing the work she does. I actually had the opportunity last June. I got to speak in front of Congress, thanks to Kevin Kiley's invitation to the House Committee on Education and Workforce. I spoke about the effects of illegal immigration on K-12 education. Dawn put together my statement. I mean, I don't think they'd ever seen anything so professional. They asked me for a draft. I turned in the draft, and they said, this is fine. You don't even need to do anything else. And I said, well, we probably should take the draft watermark off the back. But it's just like she just knew who to send it to, whose name to, I mean, just like she's amazing. If I need a bio or anything, if I'm writing an article or an op-ed, give it to her. She's so supportive to all of us and just brilliant. So we're really lucky to have the staff we have, people like John Morlock, like Julie Hamill, Lance Christensen. I mean, we have amazing people. So super excited that I'm still at the California Policy Center since my early days of volunteering in 2017. And it blends well with being on the Board of Education, because if not for them teaching me about school choice and all that, I wouldn't be approving charter schools. I wouldn't even be there. So it's really been important in my life to be part of the organization, and I just appreciate everything they do. If you guys want more information, just let me know. I left some fun pens up there and some information about our academies. I left these up there. Oh, I was just going to show you how cute our academies look, just for fun. But let's see. So campaigning for local office, and it has like a QR code, so if somebody wants to get more information on that academy. The local elected, the Leadership Academy, same thing. I left some of those cards up there. And then this is just an idea of what our Candidate Academy looks like, the PDF form. And it's just, people can just do it on their own time. They can download it, they can print it, they can do whatever they want. Strategy Academy, again, it's in PDF. This one we just filmed. I don't think it's up on the website as a virtual academy yet. I think it's still getting some edits, but it'll be up. And then this is just an example of when Lance and I go and we do, this is from recently the Strategy Academy, and we do a slideshow. And this is just so who's ever in the audience can take notes, so they're not having to copy every word from the slide. The slide is pictured, and then they can just add, because sometimes Lance and I might say something funny to go along with the slide or something that they want to write down. So I think I'll leave it there and open for questions, unless you think I don't think I missed anything on this little handout. But the handout is fun. It talks about each one of our little programs and gives you insight to the California Policy Center. And of course, we're a 501c3. If you want to make a donation, there's also envelopes out there. It is tax deductible, and it goes to our great work and pays the salary of people like me.
Mary, oh my golly. Isn't she amazing? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Mary, will you, can if people in Laguna Woods want to run for city council, does Clio help people running for city council?
Absolutely. We love people. The reason we are focused so much on education is because that's where there's been so much concern and angry parents running. But we have a lot of city councilors as our members, a lot of mayors. So we absolutely, all the academies gear towards any elected office. I've even had a congressional candidate sit in our training.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so for any office, we're happy to train. And we can always answer specific questions and then even give you specific mentors, somebody that's been a city councilor or a mayor for a long time. So, yeah.
Okay, because we have in Laguna Woods, we have a 4-to-1, 4 Democrats to 1 to 1 independent. So we really have a need for us to, all of us to consider if we want to run or if we know someone who might want to run. So I just want to plant that seed. Did you have a question, Ben?
I don't want to ask a question, but I want to personally thank you and for many of the people that attended the Board of Education meetings, because not only did you turn that board to 5-0, conservative and in the interests of the kids, but the processes to appoint Dr. Stefan Bean was so open and was so overwhelming, and people like Pat, all the way from Laguna Woods, would go all the way over there. And I found that many of our voters don't know that the Board of Education has many, all the school districts in Orange County under it. And you do not need to be afraid of attending meetings of other school boards, because as you practice and support other school boards, you are supporting your own school board and the Board of Education. And like the Huntington Beach City Council, we want to thank you, and it is so important. This is our chance, people. 2026, Mary and another candidate, another incumbent is running, and Dr. Stefan Bean. This is our chance to raise the standards and test scores of our students and stop the propaganda.
She's very shy.
Well, thank you, Betty, because Betty has been known to show up at a few meetings herself. So we do appreciate people showing up. It's always fun. We had a 7.5-hour board meeting on Wednesday, just a couple days ago, with lots of people in the audience. So it's always fun to have people there, especially if they're friendly.
Okay, we have another question, Mary. Bob?
I did not understand exactly. You mentioned there was some bill going through to end mandatory union membership. Is that what you said?
Okay, so back in 2018, the Janus was passed by the Supreme Court. And since 2018, any union member has the right to leave their union. They do not have to pay dues. The problem is a lot of people aren't educated. They don't even know they can leave. Others are afraid to leave. So we will help them through that process. We have a website called My Pay, My Say. If they have any problem at their local district, we will walk them through it. We will even support them legally if we need to. And typically, if we write a letter saying so-and-so tried to get out of the union and you said you can only do it 3 days every 3 years and they missed it, the minute we write them a letter, they say, oh, it was a misunderstanding, and they refund their dues and let them out. So we want to help and educate people to get out of their unions. And we do encourage them to go out with a friend, because the union can be very intimidating. You're not very popular in the teacher's lounge when you leave the union.
Yes, well, I just wanted to share that I've had experience with this sort of thing, and the unions do not take lightly people leaving. They can't stand losing the money, so they devise all kinds of diabolical rules as to how a person can go about leaving the union, like picking a very small period of time, a week or two, 3 months from now, as the only time you can apply to get out, and plus numerous other rules as to how you can do that. So you have to really watch out for that, because they don't do other dirty tricks for nothing, and they certainly do this one.
No, you're absolutely right.
you,
It's
Bob.
not easy to leave the union, and that's why we're here to support anybody who wants to. So if you know somebody who wants to, you can certainly send them our way.
Anyone else have a question? No? Okay. Mary, I learned, I've known Mary for a long time now, maybe 10 years. I learned a few things about her today. I didn't realize what she didn't know when she got involved. So she jumped in with her whole body and she was willing, and that's what it takes. So I'm so grateful to have her here today as my friend, and just she is a friend to everyone in Orange County, especially school board. Now, Laguna Woods, we don't have a school board in Laguna Woods, do we? So we're grandparents. So the biggest win for us is grandparents. Go ahead.
Well, and yes, so you should be concerned about your grandchildren or just the next generation, because these people are going to run our country. And I think we have a candidate in the audience here. Do you want to stand up? We have Andrea McElroy, who is running in this special election.
Come on up, Andrea.
No, this is wonderful. This is
Andrea's mom
super
just moved
important.
here. Oh, Andrea's mom just moved here, so come on up here.
Yeah. So Andrea is running in a special election in Newport Mesa, District 5?
District 5.
Area 5. So if you know anybody who lives in Newport, let them know, because special elections a lot of times don't have a high voter turnout. It's really important that we get our people out. It's really important that we get Andrea on this board. We need to flip Newport Mesa. I know it's a target of a lot of people to flip this board. She's an amazing candidate. I sat down and met with you about a week ago. And I know she has some events coming up because, unfortunately, campaigns take a lot of money. But anyway, she's here today. She's amazing. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Andrea McElroy. I live in Newport Beach, and can you guys hear me? Okay. My mother lives here, so I wanted to join her today. In fact, I think Will's coming, right? Today. I just met with Will 2 hours ago, so. So I'm running because we need to bring common sense back to the school board, and so I'm doing it. I've never run for anything ever in my life, and I'm just super passionate. We have 3 kids. They're all grown, but they all went to school in the Newport Mesa district, and I'm just dedicating. The election is June 10th. Ballots go out May 10th. And I'm dedicating every single day. I walked yesterday, Lido Island. I'm just doing everything I can to get the word out and get elected. So if you have any relatives in Newport and any grandchildren or children, let them know. My name's Andrea McElroy, and I got to win this thing.
So only that district will get a ballot. So if you know anyone that has a ballot, just make sure they know Andrea McElroy. It's really important. And she's in my district, because that's my district, too. It's a great district. McElroy. Okay. All right. Whatever works. Just get them to vote for her.
Mary, thank you so much. You know, the last time we had Mary, she really focused on the Orange County Board of Education, because at that time, Dr. Bean was running and there was a lot going on. But we had Will a year ago. Will came and talked. So we're just so glad to have Mary talk, especially about it's exciting to see all the programs you're having. Wow, it's come a long way. Yeah.
No, I was just saying, to see the growth of California Policy Center in the last 8 years is amazing. And we have a true commitment to saving California. And that's why I stay. You know, during the pandemic, they furloughed me for a month. And my children drove across country to be with me. And they said, Mom, why are you working if they're not paying you? And I'm like, well, because I believe in the cause, and we can't all just stop working. And the next month they hired me back. And so, you know, I think we have to fight for what we believe. And I want to thank you so much for having me here today. It's always a pleasure to come here.
It's our pleasure, too. Now, Betty has something to give you.
What a wonderful presentation. Having been on a school board for a very long time, I can appreciate the time and effort you give it. And thank you very much from all of us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary. So enjoy your lunch. I was neglectful when we opened our meeting and welcoming you all. I want to welcome everyone, welcome our members, welcome our guests, and I want to especially acknowledge our former president of 10 years, Shirley Morgan. Shirley's in the front thing here. Shirley is my mentor, and she is our newsletter editor, and she is our historian. And we're so grateful for her.